Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatiruttamaśloke Bhaktirbhavati Naishtiki Om Ajnanaतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 2, Daksa curses Lord Shiva. So this chapter is divided into 5 sections. Section 1 to 3, it's about inquiry by Vidura. So this is Vidura inquires, that this is the currently section that we are going through. Then section 4 to 19, Daksha insults and curses Lord Shiva. So there is an assembly where Lord Brahma has called so many great personalities, and everybody is sitting there, and Daksha enters the assembly. And Lord Shiva, he is absorbed in the thoughts of Lord Viṣṇu on the Paramatma, and thus he doesn't get up. And Daksha becomes extremely angry and very severely insults and curses Lord Shiva. Upon this curse, Nandishvara, who is the carrier of Lord Shiva, he counter curses the Daksha. So that is between 20 to 26. Nandishvara counter curses the Daksha and his followers. And upon this happening, because he is cursing the Brahmanas and like that, Bhrigu Muni, he curses Lord Shiva's followers. And all this is happening, Lord Shiva is the way he is, right? Yesterday's shloka. Characharam Gurum Nirvairam Shanti Vigraham Atmaramam Daivatam Mahat. So this is Lord Shiva. He doesn't speak any word. He simply walks off, and this is how somehow that yagya becomes complete. So this is the cursing and counter cursing verse chapter. So section 1 to 3, Vidura inquires. 4 to 19, Daksha insults and curses Lord Shiva. 20 to 26, Nandishvara curses Daksha and his followers. 27 to 32, Bhrigu curses Lord Shiva's followers. And finally, 33 to 35, Lord Shiva departs and yagya is complete. So we are in the first section of this, that is where Vidura is inquiring. Previous chapter, if we see that the Satī, she did not have a child and she burnt herself. And this is, the Vidura is very, very inquisitive and asking that, how did this happen? Daksho Duhitravatsala Bhave Shīlavatam Srishto. And Satī, she herself had all the good qualities, Gunamurti. And then why all these things is happening? So this is the inquiry of Vidura. Text 3. Etadakhyahi me brahman jamatu shashvarasya cha vidveshastu yat pranan tyajate durastyan sati. Translation.
My dear Maitreya, to part with one's life is very difficult. Would you kindly explain to me how such a son-in-law and father-in-law could quarrel so bitterly that the great goddess Sati could give up her life? Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So he said, Ekadakhyahi, my dear My dear sir, my dear Maitreya Muni, to part from one's life is very, very difficult. It is that this Damad and Shvasur, look at the verse. Jamatuhu Shvasurascha. This Jamad, who is Jamad here, Lord Shiva, and Shvasur, Lord Dakṣa Muni, Dakṣaji. What did conspire between them that such a horrific thing has happened? That Sati gave up her life, who is, the all good qualities personified. I am interested to know this pastime. Text 4. Now we continue the section 2, that is 4 to 19. This is Daksha cursing Lord Shiva. Maitreya Uvacha, text 4. Puram Vishvasrujam Satre Sameta Paramarshayah Tatha Amaragana Sarve Sanuga Munayograyah. Translation.
Translation: The sage Maitreya said, in a former time, the leaders of the universal creation performed a great sacrifice in which all the great sages, philosophers, demigods, and fire gods assembled with their followers. Purport: Upon being asked by Vidura, the sage Maitreya began to explain the cause of the misunderstanding between Lord Shiva and Daksha, because of which the goddess Satī gave up her body. Thus begins the history of a great sacrifice performed by the leaders of the universal creation, namely Marichi, Daksha, and Vaiṣṇava. These great personalities arranged for a great sacrifice for which demigods like Indra and the fire gods assembled with their followers. Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva were also present. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. So now here, once upon a time, there was a yajna where all the great personalities, philosophers, demigods, fire gods, they had assembled along with their followers. So in this, so Srila Prabhupada explains in the purport, this is the inquiry by Vidura, and Maitreya begins to explain the misunderstanding between Lord Shiva and Daksha, where goddess Sati gave up her body. So here one very important learning is, what is the learning here is that whichever activity, we begin in our life, and especially, our spiritual life, one should always seek blessings. Now here, look at this. Everybody is good here, right? Daksha is also a great personality. Lord Shiva, what can be said about Lord Shiva? Sati, all, the Gunamurti she is, right? Purpose is yajna. But still, the material world is so designed that there is always a fire. And therefore, whatever activity we begin in our life, we should always take blessings from our Shiksha Guru and Diksha Guru, right? Or our, our senior devotees to whom we are following. So devotees will not ask us, but it is, unto us that we should be submissive. So submissiveness is not to be commanded as we advance in spiritual life. As we advance in spiritual life, practically nobody will be asking us anything. Why? Because people will feel, अरे बाप रे वैष्णव अपराध हो जाएगा. How can I ask प्रभु जी, प्रभु जी आपका chanting कैसे चल रहा है, 16 माला हो रहा है कि नहीं, following regulative principles, are you reading properly, so people will assume no news is good news, right? But we on our side, we have to be always seek in a blessing seeking mood, and that is a devotee, even for performing good activities. This is important thing. Sometimes devotees, they just move here and there, go, and that is good. I mean, perfectly fine. They are on their own. But at the same time, if you are visiting a holy place, if you are going for a yatra, if you are undertaking something, then it is always better to seek blessings from the senior Vaishnavas. Always important. Text 5. Tatra pravishtam rishayo दृष्ट्वार्कम् इव रोचिषा भ्राजमानं vitimiram kuruvantam tanmahatsadah. Translation.
When Daksha, the leader of the Prajapatis, entered that assembly, his personal body luster as bright as the effulgence of the sun, the entire assembly was illuminated, and all the assembled personalities became insignificant in his presence.
Yeah, so here Now, all these personalities were sitting there, great sages, philosophers, demigods, fire gods. Fire gods we have counted yesterday, 49 of them. Demigods, hundreds and thousands of them. Great sages, hundreds and thousands. A huge assembly. And there, the great personality, Daksha, not just Prajāpati, the leader of Prajāpati, right? He is the leader of Prajāpati. He entered the assembly. The personal bodily luster as bright as the effulgence of a sun, right? So as bright as the effulgence of the sun. Now we cannot look at the bright, dazzling sun. So this is how Daksha entered. Daksha is no small personality. And the entire assembly was illuminated. Upon entrance of Daksha, what happened is entire assembly got illuminated. Means, just imagine you are going for a board meeting, right? And all other people are sitting, your CEO is sitting, and CFO is sitting, and all your coding team, and all other people are sitting. And as soon as you enter, simply by your bodily luster, the entire the assembly room is illuminated, and people are like closing their eyes, unable to behold your brightness and effulgence. This is how Daksha entered. All the assembled personalities became insignificant in his presence. So Daksha was such a towering personality, right? Simply by the presence of Daksha, everybody just became insignificant. This is how Daksha entered. So this is the entry of Daksha Prajapati, who is leader of all the Prajapatis. Text 6. Udatishtan sadasyaste swadishnebhya sahat प्रयग्नः कृते विरिञ्चा सर्वं च सत् तद्भासाक्षिप्तचेतसः. Translation.
Influenced by his personal bodily luster,
all the fire
all
gods and other participants in that great assembly, with the exceptions of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, gave up their own sitting places and stood in respect for Daksha. Hare Krishna.
So as soon as Daksha entered and this entire assembly was illuminated, influenced by his personal bodily luster, all the fire gods, other participants in that great assembly, they immediately got up to show respect, except Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. So now there are, if we go in a lessons class, there are so many lessons in this, in this each verse of this pastime. So here, this was a wrong influence, basically influenced by the bodily luster. So in a way, it was a wrong influence, and sometimes we also may come under a wrong influence. And what is the wrong influence? Wrong influence especially means upadharma. Countless devotees, they have limited themselves, they have done so many, just messed up with their life because of excessive following of vastu shastra. I know people who have sold their wonderful house, booked their house, all the stamp duty, everything is paid, and then they just sold their house, and the loss is like 20 lakh rupees in just changing the house, just going from this on the this is on the moon planet. So don't guess the I change all the references whenever I give example. So, and similarly, people have just changed their excessive influence of Ayurveda. There are people who take their breakfast at 5 o'clock in the morning, lunch at 8 o'clock in the morning, and dinner at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, and then whole day they don't eat anything. And like this, every good dharma, upadharma, can be just go to extreme. So therefore, Bhagavad Gita says, Samatvam yoga muchyate. Samatvam yoga means the balance is the yoga. So we should be aware that with whom we are getting influence. My general principle is that never get excessively influenced by anybody. Right? We should not be so influenced that our faculty of brain, intelligence, मराठी म्हणतो ना आपण त्याच्यामध्ये बुद्धी घाण टाकणे. It should not happen. So this is very important. That is samatvam yoga uchyate. Our the amazing personality of Pune, Her Grace Satyavati Mataji. She used to always say this. Aikave janache, karave manache. Okay. That, one should hear people, but then karave manache, because you have to do, because you are responsible for whatever you are doing, and only you are going to enjoy or suffer or be beneficiary of otherwise of what we are doing, right? So this is very important, that what we are getting influenced of. Okay, so this way of reading will not do, this will go very slow. Text 7. So except Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, they did not get up. Baki, everybody got up. What did Daksha see? Text 7. Sadasaspatibir Daksho Bhagavan Sadhu Satkruta Ajam Lokagurum Natva Nishasada Tadatnyaya. Translation?
Daksha was adequately welcomed by the president of the Great Assembly, Lord Brahma. After offering Lord Brahma respect, Daksha, by the order of Brahma, properly took his seat.
So Daksha was adequately welcomed. I mean, whatever is going to happen next, all next instances are just unnecessary, right? That Daksha being cursing, and the all curse and counter curse is going to happen. He was adequately welcomed. Daksha adequately welcomed by the president of the Great Assembly, Lord Brahma. After offering Lord Brahma respect, Daksha took his to seat. Text 8. Prangnishanyamu Brudham Drishtva Nratripyat Sad Anadritah Uvacha Vamam Chakshurbyam Abhivikshasya Dahanniva. Translation.
Before taking his seat, however, Daksha was very much offended to see Lord Shiva sitting and not showing him any respect. At that time, Daksha became greatly angry and his eyes glowing. He began to speak very strongly against Lord Shiva. Purport: Lord Shiva, being the son-in-law of Daksha, was expected to show his father-in-law respect by standing with the others. But because Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are the principal demigods, their positions are greater than Daksha's. Daksha, however, could not tolerate this, and he took it as an insult by his son-in-law. Previously also, he was not very much satisfied with Lord Shiva, for Shiva looked very poor and was regretfully in dress.
So now see the beauty of Bhagavatam, how slow Bhagavatam is moving, correct? So, the verses, how slow they are moving. So we have to, really, really relish Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. This is the mood of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Now Daksha is entering, what is happening to the assembly, and he was adequately welcomed, and he was like a effulgent like a sun. Everybody was minimized in their presence, and he was adequately welcomed. He offered obeisances to Lord Brahma. Lord Brahma gave him a seat. Daksha was about to sit. Before taking his seat, Daksha was very much offended by Lord Shiva sitting. He suddenly saw everybody standing except Lord Brahma. He did not expect Lord Brahma to stand because he is the father. Lord Brahma is father of Daksha. But he saw Lord Shiva sitting there. And he thought Lord Shiva sitting there is not showing him any respect. And Daksha became extremely angry. With his eyes glowing, he began to speak very strongly against Lord Shiva. Again, no, Krodhat Bhavati Sammoha. So Daksha was in full Sammoha, right? In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, Lord Shiva being son-in-law is supposed to stand up when Daksha entered, but Lord Shiva is also the principal deity. He is Brahma, Viṣṇu, Maheshwara. The Tridev of the universe is Lord Shiva. And he is not supposed to stand up to anybody except to Lord Viṣṇu, and maybe out of courtesy to Lord Brahma, because he comes from the Bhrukuti of Lord Brahma. And that time, Lord Shiva was in deep trance in meditation upon his own Aradhya deity. And this is how Lord Shiva was not standing. It was not that Lord Shiva was thinking, oh, I am principal deity, let him come. Even if he's my Shvasur, I will not stand. That was not the point. Lord Shiva is Atmaram. He was fully self-absorbed in the meditation on the Supreme Lord, Lord Viṣṇu. And therefore, that instance just passed through him. He did not take the cognizance of. But Daksha took it as a great offense. He was previously was not very happy with Lord Shiva because Lord Shiva looked very poor. If you see Lord Shiva is Aniket. He doesn't have any house. He will be wearing Valkala. There will be snake on his body. There will be jata, and he will be wearing all through the ashes of the crematorium. And this is how Lord Shiva moves anywhere and everywhere. And he was meagerly very dressed. And all these demigods, not to speak of demigods, recently I heard of a marriage, where some of our IT devotees, they were attending marriage, very well set devotees, my friends. And they told me that, Prabhuji, when we saw the ladies there in that marriage, our lifetime of fire is called as, what is that? Financial independent and retire early. That number, that when I get this much of money, I will retire. And people have their own number of monies, Somebody says, if I get 3 crore, I can retire, Prabhuji. Somebody says 4 crore, 5 crore, like that it is. Their fire number. He said that these people, they were so rich. My fire number, that those, those ladies were wearing as ornaments on their body. Everybody was wearing like 6 crore ka diamonds and necklaces and something like that. Now, this is of some mortals on the earthly planet. Just imagine how gorgeously the demigods must be dressing, right? And compared to that, Lord Shiva, he is putting some ash on the body, he's having the Valkal and all that. So Daksha was not very happy with him. And incidentally, what had happened is, Daksha's most favorite daughter, Satī, was given to Lord Shiva. And now he's sitting, not standing up. He has come to assembly in all that dress and, कभी कभी अपने को भी लोग बोलते हैं, राइट, प्रभु जी वो जरा तिलक वगैरह लगा के मत आना, या फिर अपना वो बीड बैग लेकर मत आना. And people have their own sensitivities around that. But this is how Lord Shiva entered, and this is how Daksha treated him. And now Daksha became extremely angry. Daksha was not happy with million people offering him respect. He was just concerned that one person did not offer me respect. This is classical recipe for disaster. Right. Text 9. Shruyatam brahmarshayo me sahadeva sahapnayah sadhunam bravato vrittam nadnya nanasya matsarat. Translation.
All sages, brahmanas, and fire gods present, please hear me with attention, for I speak about the manners of gentle persons. I do not speak out of ignorance or envy. Purport. In speaking against Lord Shiva, Daksha tried to pacify the assembly by presenting in a very tactful way that he was going to speak about the manners of gentle persons. Although naturally this might affect some unmannerly upstarts, and the assembly might be unhappy because they did not want even unmannerly persons to be offended. In other words, he was in complete knowledge that he was speaking against Lord Shiva in spite of Shiva's spotless character. As far as envy is concerned, from the very beginning he was envious of Lord Shiva. Therefore, he could not distinguish his own particular envy. Although he spoke like a man in ignorance, he wanted to cover his statements by saying that he was not speaking for impudent and envious reasons. Hare Krishna.
So Daksha began to speak. All the assembled sages, brahmanas and fire gods, please hear me with great attention. Don't think I am speaking out of ignorance or envy. And Srila Prabhupada writes in purport that he was speaking perfectly in ignorance and perfectly with envy. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, speaking against Lord Shiva, Daksha anyway means expert. This is the meaning, the literal meaning of the word Daksha. The expert personality, Daksha, he began his speech in a very tactful way, just like Duryodhana. He began to speak as if, in Bhagavad Gita when it starts, he says that, Tava Shishyena Dhimata, my dear Drupad, my dear Dronacharya, just see, your disciple, very sarcastically he's speaking, right? very sarcastically. So he's thinking that he's speaking very tactful way, but actually he's being very sarcastic. So he thought that if he speaks like this, the assembly may become disturbed, or people may feel, oh, what this Daksa is so envious. But he said, no, I'm not speaking out of envy, and I'm not speaking out of ignorance, but he was speaking perfectly in envy and ignorance, and his speech was impudent and very, very envious. But he began like this. Text 10. Athatu lokapalanam yashogno nirapatrayah sadbhir acharati pantha yena stabhena dushitah. Translation.
Translation: Shiva has spoiled the name and fame of the governors of the universe and has polluted the path of gentle manners. Because he is shameless, he does not know how to act. Purport: Daksha wanted to impress upon the minds of all the great sages assembled in that meeting that Shiva, being one of the demigods, has ruined the good reputations of all the demigods by his unmannerly behavior. The words used against Lord Shiva by Daksha can also be understood in a different way, in a good sense. For example, he stated that Shiva is Yashogana, which means one who spoils name and fame. So this can also be interpreted to mean that he was so famous that his fame killed all other fame. Again, Daksha used the word Nirapatrapaha, which also can be used in two senses. One sense is one who is stunted, and another sense is one who is the maintainer of persons who have no other shelter. Generally, Lord Shiva is known as the Lord of the Bhutas, or lower grade of living creatures. They take shelter of Lord Shiva because he is very kind to everyone and is very quickly satisfied. Therefore, he is called Ashutosha. To such men who cannot approach other demigods or Vishnu, Lord Shiva gives shelter. Therefore, the word Nirapatrapaha can be used in that sense. Hare Krishna.
Daksha began to speak. Daksha said, Lord Shiva has spoiled the name and fame of all the demigods and the Prajapatis, Lokapalas. He is shameless and does not know how to act. So this is bursted out. The Daksha is bursting out like this. In the purport, Srila Prabhupada explains, Daksha wanted to impress upon minds of the people assembly that Lord Shiva, being one of the demigods, should have a mannerly behavior. But all the manners of Lord Shiva, they were beyond the understanding of Daksha. And therefore he is, criticizing Daksha in this way. But when, the Saraswatya meaning. Saraswatya meaning means the Mother Saraswati has defined the Sanskrit language in such a way that no word can offend Lord or the devotees of the Supreme Lord. Right? The Sanskrit as a language is defined in such a way that no word, and that's why we will see the Saraswati meaning, that the Sanskrit word having the second meaning, that you cannot simply, the language is only defined in such a way that you cannot, even if you give gali to Supreme Lord, or later we'll see, or we have seen previously, right, Hiranyaksha speaking such bad words to Varahadev, and all those words, whatever you do is only a glorification, and glorification, the all glorious Supreme Lord, and such a devotee of the Supreme Lord as Lord Shiva, Vaiṣṇava-tattva Shambho. So there is always this some idea that ISKCON devotees don't respect Lord Shiva, this and that. You will see all those stupid kind of videos. But here is the ISKCON understanding on Lord Shiva, Srila Prabhupada writing in the purport. Lord Shiva is the greatest of the great Vaishnavas, Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambho. And the Sanskrit language itself is defined in such a way that no word can offend Lord Shiva. And here the word, he says Yashogna, he's destroying all the name and fame. But what is the meaning of word Yashogna? Yes, Lord Shiva is Yashogna. Yashogna means when Lord Shiva arrives, right, he's so famous that everybody else's fame is killed by the fame of Lord Shiva. This is Yashogna. Daksha said he is Nirapatrayaha. Nirapatrayaha means, he is very stunted. He is shameless, does not know how to act. But Nirapatrayaha means the personality who gives shelter to those who are stunted and does not know how to act, who are completely shelterless. Right? And who are those personalities? The Bhutas and the Pretas. There is a very scientific understanding that, how the Bhutas and the Pretas are there. Bhoot Pret, do they exist? 100% they exist, right? Bhutas do exist. What is a bhoot? Ghost means when somebody's gross body goes away untimely, he becomes a ghost. Very simple idea. That whenever living entity karmana daiva netrena jantur deho papadyate is awarded a body, he is supposed to live a particular time period which is counted in number of breaths in that body. And that's why you see that when we do pranayam and elongate our breath, we will elongate our life. But somebody out of for XYZ reason commits a suicide, he's supposed to live for 80 years. For the sake of simplicity, instead of number of breaths, we'll now count in terms of years. He's supposed to live for 80 years, and somebody commits suicide at the age of 65. Remaining 15 years, another gross body will not be awarded, and such a person will remain ghost. He has subtle body, and soul is there with only with subtle body, but the gross body is missing, through which he is going to fulfill his desires, and therefore committing suicide is considered as one of the heinous crime in the Vedic parlance. So, and now who such people are called as bhoot. And now who is the shelter for such bhoot? Do you think demigods will let them come in close? No question. But there is one personality who is very kind to such bhutas, and he is called as Bhutanath, Lord Shiva. And he is very easily pleased. Now look at the proposal. He is giving his association to the most degraded bhuta, and he is Ashutosha. He is very easily pleased. And therefore, Nirapatrayaha is perfect for Lord Shiva, because he is the only shelter. He is the worthy shelter of those who are extremely fallen. And he is Bhutanath, Lord Shiva. So we will conclude here and continue tomorrow. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaura Bhakta ki jai. Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you,
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, everyone. Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Prabhuji. Thank you,
Prabhupada. Thank you,
everyone.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam.